Another crucial tool in strategy that allows us to analyze environment is Porter's 5 forces model. Now, Porter's 5 forces model is a tool that is not served to analyze any sort of environment. It's something that we call industrial environment or analysis of an industry. So what is an industry? Industry is a group of companies that are creating similar product for a similar market that have similar customers. So we talk about automotive industry, hotel industry, manufacturing industry, and similar industries, right? So now the question is, why that Michael Porter, who developed this model, was asking himself, why in some industries it seems that companies are quite profitable, and why in some industries the companies have trouble making any money? You look at airline industry and you find out that most airline operators, airline companies are quite unprofitable, right? They are losing money all the time. And you know, in the very current history, you can name few companies that got into trouble. I mean, Alitalia pops in my mind, Italian carrier, United, Delta, had financial troubles and so on and so forth. On the other end of the spectrum, there's companies that they seem to always be making money in some, like Coca-Cola, right? So how is that possible? Well, maybe it's because these companies are competing in a different industry, and some industries are more profitable than others. And there was a theory of Michael Porter, and he was then able to develop a model that explained this idea, that explained this theory, right? This model is called 5 forces model, and basically it consists of 5 variables that influence the profitability in any given industry. So we can look at the industry, apply this 5 forces model, and say beforehand whether we believe that the companies in this industry will most likely be profitable or not. Let's look at those 5 forces one by one. So first of them is called barriers to entry. Now, barriers to entry is basically a force or a variable that describes how difficult it is for new competition to enter the industry. So, for example, let's take an example. You have an ice cream shop on the street, right? You're selling ice cream, and you're making a kill because there is no competition. Now, you can expect that if there is a new guy coming also selling an ice cream, the prices will be lowered, right? Because you're selling ice cream for $10 per piece, right? And quite high price. The new guy, if he wants to capture some sort of some market, you need to go lower than you with his price. Maybe it's going to be $8 per piece. Now, when you see that, you might also adjust your price. Maybe it's going to be $7. So the competition cycle starts, and the prices will go down because there was no barrier to entry. To buy an ice cream cart is very simple. It's not expensive. To operate an ice cream cart is easy. There is no know-how. So any competition can come into the market. Well, there are industries where it's difficult for new entrants to enter the industry. It typically would be, as I mentioned, the software manufacturers, Coke, right? Well, there the barrier to entry is there because of the brand that the current incumbents have, right? Like you can easily create a new drink, but no one will buy that because no one will know that. So if there is a strong brand of current competitors in the industry, it's very difficult for others to enter, right? So one of the barriers is brand. There can be some regulation. They will totally prohibit it. Like notaries, you know, you are a lawyer, you want to become a notary, bad luck, there's a regulation, you know. Trademark or intellectual property, you want to create new Google, well, good luck. Well, you can buy the servers, you can buy the hardware, but you don't know how the Google works. That's the barrier to entry into the search engine industry. So barriers to entry are like a crown jewel of those 5 variables. Explains a lot about profitability in this given industry, and you can always, you can always ask a question: is it a good idea to open a company, to start a company in this industry? Is it a good idea to invest in the company in this industry? You can always answer. You can always first look into how difficult it is for competition to go there. You know, if it's easy for competition to become part of the industry, then you should be aware, right? It seems like it's most likely the profitability will be quite low. The next variable, next power, is power of buyers. Now, this power is, well, I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. Take the bottlers industry, right? So bottlers are people that are filling bottles making bottles from plastic like this one, and they are basically like this one, and they are making they're filling the bottle with the drink made with a recipe or some ingredients of the buyer, right? So the buyer in this case is, for example, the crucial buyer for these bottlers is Coca-Cola, most of them. Because as you look at the global scale, there's only two really big soft drink producers, Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola, right? But there's many bottlers. Every country has dozens of bottlers. Czech Republic, small country that I'm from, there's 2 bottlers in my small city of 30,000 people. Now, Coca-Cola needs to make new bottles, new drinks, new products. The Coca-Cola will reach out to them and ask them to produce it for them, right? They give them some price, some target price. Now, price is very low, obviously. Like any other buyer would set up a low price. Now, the bottlers can or cannot negotiate. Well, almost no, because the Coca-Cola there's only Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola. It's a dominant buyer in the market, and there's many bottlers. So Coca-Cola can choose amongst those that will give it the best price, right? And so the negotiating power of buyer in this situation is very bad, and that makes the profitability in the industry of bottlers very low, right? Because the buyers have high power. Buyers are for the industry of bottling. The buyers are those Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola, right? Another example of a high power of buyers would be a hotel industry, where buyers are us. We cannot go and negotiate at the reception about the price. Most of us will not do that, but we can choose a hotel, and that's a form of negotiation. I will have a list of the cheapest hotel in London and choose the cheapest one. That is an expression of my power to choose. So puts a lot of pressure on the hotels to decrease the prices, because now I have all the information I need to choose the cheapest player, and that's not a good business to be in. So the hotels industry are also very unprofitable because the buyers have lots of power. And the third variable is power of substitutes. Now, substitute is a product that is similar to what some other product. It's not the same, it's not competition, it's a substitute. So for example, if you are coffee bean producer, you will try to increase the price of your coffee beans, but then you will have a certain cap where you will notice that the customers start buying tea instead of coffee in their coffee shops, because tea and coffee are to a certain extent substitutes, right? So if there is a substitute industry that puts pressure on the profitability, it lowers the ability for companies to increase the profits, because then the consumers can switch to the substitute. Well, then there's the power of suppliers. Now, the power of suppliers is like a mirror to power of buyers, right? So in some industries, suppliers are very powerful. I can think of Microsoft in IT industry, right? Microsoft would be a very powerful supplier to, let's say, PC industry, personal computer manufacturing industry, has suppliers such as Microsoft. PC manufacturing industry, creating the laptops, for example, companies making laptops are the profitability is very bad there, because the suppliers are very powerful. There's only few. Microsoft, the chips, the memories, all those suppliers are very strong, because there are very few of them in the global on the global scale, right? So these buyers like Lenovo and Dell need to negotiate with Microsoft on the price of the system, Windows system, but they're in a very bad position because Microsoft is the only one who can supply the system. So imagine how difficult for Dell or Lenovo is to get a good price for the system if the Microsoft knows that they're actually the only one they can buy from. So that's power of suppliers. And the last thing, which I didn't write here, is rivalry. That's the fifth force. Now, the idea here is that the rivalry is the extent to competition, or to how fiercely the companies compete in the industry. So we say the rivalry is high if there's a fierce competition. If the rivalry is low, we say that there is very little competition, right? So you would normally say companies always compete with each other, right? But it turns out that it's not always true. If you have an industry where there's only few companies, it's better for them to agree. It might be illegal, but they will still do it in some way or another. they don't want to compete because the result of competition on prices, for example, is always benefits for consumers, but not for neither of them. No? So they will try to agree on prices. But the more companies you have in the industry, so Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola will not try to compete very fiercely on prices. But if you have hundreds of hotels in the given industry, then the competition will be fierce. The more companies you have, the more fierce the competition is there. So this was the and the higher the rivalry is. So this was the 5FORCES model that is used, another environmental analysis tool used to analyze the industry as a part of environment at large. Very useful, very influential. If you're looking to invest into a company or an industry, let's go through these 5 variables first, and you will see if the profitability is supposed to be high or low.